Coming up on We Talk News this week.
This is a new place to be here across from South Station, Firebrand Cannabis. Thank you so much for coming up.
Firebrand, a Boston dispensary, has their grand opening right across from the South Station train and bus station in downtown Boston. And is that former Green Rush host David Rabinovitz handing out Richie's slush?
That's why I'm talking to you.
We talk with Morgan Fox, the political director for NORML.
The DEA has 30 days from the end of the comment period to announce whether or not they're going to have a hearing.
Plus, recreational adult use sales are ready for opening day this week in the Buckeye State of Ohio. And California and now New Jersey pull some bad cannabis from the shelves with all sorts of gross stuff found in the testing. Still, a legendary advocate from the Minority Cannabis Business Association, Tahir Johnson, opens his first adult use dispensary in the New Jersey capital of Trenton and talks with our Jill Goldsberry.
It's exciting because we are now coming up on our first full week after our grand opening tomorrow.
And Texas Governor Greg Abbott and his state AG both lose their legal fight again to stop the decriminalization initiatives in their cities, including Dallas now. And it's the weekend of the Homegrown Cup in Charlton, Massachusetts. That was part of the Homie Collective Campout, 3-day festival of music, arts, crafts, homegrown, and of course, cannabis culture. All that and coast-to-coast cannabis news on We Talk News next.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of We Talk News, Pro Cannabis Media's weekly roundup of cannabis news from coast to coast. I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young, filling in this week for the vacationing Alaina Pinto in Massachusetts.
And I'm Karen Black in Arizona. Our top story this week is the continued dissection of the over 43,000 public comments submitted to the DEA about the potential rescheduling of cannabis as a controlled substance. PCM founder Jimmy Young talked with the political director of NORML, Morgan Fox, about what's next in this process and what role it will play in the presidential election this fall.
And it seems that this process is already in the process of delaying again. Is there a time frame on this, and how important is the result of the election in 2024 going to impact that?
I think that the people that want to keep cannabis on Schedule 1 think that delaying this process is in their best interests. Now, whether that is simply to give them more time to get their ducks in a row and try to build the best case they possibly can again for a relatively indefensible position, or whether they think that political developments over the next few months are going to dramatically decrease the potential for the scheduling process to move forward in a way that tends towards Schedule 3. If Democrats do win the White House, I think that, we're not going to see any opposition to the scheduling process moving forward whatsoever. And in fact, I think, we might see a little bit more pressure to keep it to a reasonable timeline. And also, Vice President Harris is the only candidate out there who has specifically called for descheduling and federal legalization. So, while it's uncertain exactly how much political pressure she would use to push for that policy, whether that's calling on Congress to do so or pressuring the Department of Justice to do it, I think that remains to be seen. But she's already said that her position is pretty solid.
There's some interesting movement on the changes that might happen if and when cannabis gets rescheduled. Throughout the show, we'll have other excerpts from that interview with Morgan Fox. This week, a congressional research report analyzed the impact of that move and believes that cannabis businesses might be able to advertise in newspapers and magazines if rescheduling occurs. With more on that possibility, here's our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Andrew Behringer.
I'm Andrew Behringer, and this is the DC Area Report for We Talk News. The recent proposal to reschedule cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 could bring significant changes to the cannabis industry, but questions still remain about its full impact. If approved, state legal cannabis businesses could finally advertise in newspapers and magazines such as Cannabis and Tech Today and other cannabis industry publications without fear of federal prosecution. They would also gain access to crucial tax deductions, potentially boosting profitability for job creation in the sector. Now, however, cannabis would remain federally illegal without FDA approval as medicine, and most collateral consequences of cannabis convictions would persist. This highlights the limitations of rescheduling cannabis versus full legalization. The move faces opposition from some GOP members who would challenge the process and allege political motivations behind the decision. Meanwhile, state cannabis regulators are calling for clarity on how rescheduling could affect federal enforcement and interactions with state-regulated markets. As the debate continues, it's clear that while rescheduling cannabis could offer some relief to the industry, it falls short of the comprehensive reform that many advocates seek. The coming months will be crucial as stakeholders navigate these potential changes in federal cannabis policy, as well as advocates and others. I'm Andrew Behringer reporting for We Talk News. I'll see you next week.
The 24th legal adult use state of Ohio is ready to open their cannabis dispensaries to the over 21 adult market this week. Now, with opening day on August 6th, many of the medical dispensaries are already operational and will be allowed to sell to adults for their hopefully responsible use. Our regular Ohio correspondent, Harry Bernstein, is a little under the weather this week, but he should have some very interesting insight on the first week performance in his state. Now, here's a little more information that we know at this hour. The Ohio Division of Cannabis Control issued dual licenses to existing medical dispensaries that had applied, and some got their commence operations communique this week. Yes, they will open on Tuesday, August 6th. And of course, those regulators had to guide the stores on what they can and what they can't do on opening day. So there's no on-site consumption, there's no sampling, no live music, or even food trucks. But you can have a ribbon cutting ceremony. Woohoo! Now, all I can tell you, Ohio residents, is that the novelty of opening day will ease over time as the market evolves. Many economists are predicting that the Ohio market could be one of the most successful in the U.S. And I will tell you that they will have a long way to go if they're going to catch up to Missouri. That state has set all sorts of first-year sales records, and now the governor there, Mike Parson, is shutting down the Delta-8 cannabinoid derivative market in smoke shops, gas stations, and convenience stores. This protects the flourishing legally licensed businesses in that state. And our man in the Show Me state is Brandon Jones. This week, he reports live inside one of those smoke shops that will now have to remove all those products from their shelves or face fines and potential jail time. Here's Brandon.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with the Missouri Cannabis Report for We Talk News, coming to you live from one of the smoke shops here in downtown Kansas City, where, yes, oh my goodness, the laws have changed. Governor Parson wrote into law that now any Delta-8 products, Delta-10 products, HHC products, other cannabinoids are not allowed to be sold here unless they're fully regulated, which is crazy because obviously there's nobody to regulate them at this time. So that means, what the heck is going on? So obviously the owners of all these shops are obviously not very happy, don't know what to do as far as income. So this is a big deal here in the state of Missouri. Also at all of the liquor stores, anybody that holds any sort of liquor license can now not sell any sort of cannabinoid drinks as well, or any of the THC flower or other regulated products that were sold at those liquor stores currently. So this is a big deal in the state of Missouri. No more are you able to get these products at those places. So you got to figure out, what are we supposed to be doing now? So please get out to the state of Missouri, figure out where you can get your recreational cannabis, or find a local home grower and grow your own cannabis. Find a way, please, to get plant over pill medicine and stop taking those other places. So again, I'm Brandon Jones with B Green Distribution with Missouri Cannabis Report for We Talk News. Stay medicated and educated. Have a great week.
Have you heard about the latest twist in Minnesota's cannabis laws? It's causing quite a stir in apartment buildings across the state. As of July 1st, Minnesota has put the kibosh on smoking or vaping cannabis in multifamily housing. This means if you're living in an apartment or condo, You can't light up or vape inside anymore. It's a big change from the state's previously chill attitude towards cannabis use. But here's the kicker. There's a loophole for medical marijuana users. If you've got a medical card, you're still allowed to smoke or vape in your apartment. Talk about a green privilege. This new rule wasn't supposed to kick in until 2025, but they fast-tracked it for various reasons. Now, landlords and property managers are required to enforce this ban, which is stirring up some mixed feelings. But don't worry, though, you can still keep your stash and even grow a few plants in your apartment. And if you're more into edibles, you're in the clear. It's just smoking and vaping that's off limits. So if you've been bothered by your neighbor's pot smoke, you might be breathing easier soon, unless, of course, they have a medical card. Heading back to the East Coast, here's We Talk News' Joe Parsons with more on Verano's Virginia acquisition, among other news.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on We Talk News. While there still hasn't been any announcement from the VCCA about Health Service District 1 in the Commonwealth, there is some exciting news, however, to report about HSA 5. Verano Holdings from Chicago has made a $90 million deal with fellow MSO, the Cannabis Company. Covering Virginia Beach to Williamsburg, HSA 5 is the second largest in Virginia. Through this agreement, it will include a cultivation and production facility and 6 dispensaries in this huge district. This deal also included another cultivation and production facility and 2 more dispensaries in Arizona as well. So a huge deal to say the least. Verano Chairman and CEO George Arcos said in a public statement, "This opportunity greatly increases Verano's growth trajectory as we gain access to the coveted market of Virginia ahead of an adult use program and deepens our footprint in Arizona." He then added, "With Virginia, we'll be in a prime position to once again take advantage of the extraordinary growth that is expected to come with an adult use program launch." Now, as I've reported in the past, Virginia currently doesn't have an adult use program, as it was vetoed in April by Governor Youngkin. So maybe George Arcos knows something that no one else knows yet. You can count on Pro Cannabis Media and myself to keep you up to date as this story unfolds. In other news, in July of 2023, a law went into effect that regulated the amount of THC that hemp-derived products can have. The law also made clear that edible hemp products, especially ones that resemble candy, must be lab tested and have clear labeling. Well, since July 2023 and June 30th of 2024, the Virginia Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services Hemp Enforcement, the agency that's tasked of enforcing the law, has found that 346 out of 424 businesses were indeed in violation. There was a total of 17,715 violations found. There's been over $10 million in civil penalties levied against these businesses, and so far only $433,000 has been collected. The fiscal year began on July 1st, and there's already 43 out of 66 businesses inspected have violations, or 65%. Now, this is a clear indication that Virginia desperately needs a safe and regulated adult use program to help keep these hot hemp products out of gas stations and little bodega shops. That could potentially wind up in the hands of children. You can count on me to continue to working towards just that, a safe and fair market that helps the economy and protects our youth. Well, that's going to do it for this week from the Virginia Cannabis Connection and reporting from We Talk News. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
Air Wilderness has been one of the biggest multi-state operators in the country, and they are now looking for a new chairman of their board. John Sambleman, who had been the CEO since 2017 and then moved over to the executive board, well, he took that over a few years ago, and now he's decided it's time to move on to other opportunities. Texas Governor Greg Abbott might want to think about leading another state soon, since his cities and his states continue to rebel and move towards decriminalization. Abbott and his attorney general continue to fight against the right of their communities in that state to create their own city laws, bypassing state laws when it comes to cannabis. Once again, their strategy of trying to prove that in a court of law, well, it's been rejected now for the second time in 6 months. Here's our own Texas correspondent Lisa Williams with her take on developments in her city of Dallas.
I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency with the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Howdy, howdy, y'all. Big changes on the horizon in the Lone Star State. Dallas is making headlines as local officials have certified enough signatures to put marijuana decriminalization on the November ballot. The petition, which received strong backing from local activists, signals a shift in public sentiment. With growing support for more progressive cannabis policies, Dallas is positioning itself to possibly join other Texas cities that have already moved towards decriminalization, which could mean fewer arrests for minor possession, less strain on the judicial system, and a step towards modern cannabis approach reform. The development in Dallas are part of a bigger, broader trend in the state of Texas, where cities and counties are increasingly considering marijuana reform with a growing statewide push for more sensible cannabis laws. With more local government exploring decriminalization, there's a clear indication that public opinion is shifting towards favoring reform. Despite some opposition from state officials, the momentum for reform continues to grow. This is especially evident in cities like San Marcos, where recent legal victories have upheld local decriminalization efforts, setting a strong precedent for others to follow. For a state as large and as diverse as Texas, these local efforts are crucial in setting the stage for broader statewide reforms. As more and more cities consider decriminalization, the conversation around cannabis policies are evolving, and it's a clear sign that Texas is ready for a change. Whether it's to reduce the legal consequences for minor offenses, allocate resources more efficiently, or simply reflect the modern understanding of cannabis. So whether you're a Dallas resident gearing up for the November ballot or just keeping an eye on the shifting landscape, there's no denying that Texas is on the cusp of significant cannabis reform. I'm Lisa Williams, founder of the Toke Agency with the Texas Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News.
That will do it for the A block or first section of Weed Talk News for this week. But we've got plenty more cannabis news coverage from coast to coast ahead. We leave you with more of the interview Jimmy Young had with the political director of NORML, Morgan Fox.
Republicans take the White House, then I think it's really kind of up in the air. I'm not as worried about a President Trump interfering with the scheduling process as I am about some of the people that he may bring with him to Capitol Hill and to Washington generally. I think that a new attorney general or a new DEA head could be significantly worse than what we have right now.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Now, let me tell you my cannabis story. I've had 4 major surgeries in the past 23 years and suffer from osteoarthritis with a variety of metal parts in my body and one on deck. Now, thanks to those chronic pain issues, I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weegets filtration system. What? The Weegets.com, Weegets, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product that cools the smoke from everyone's favorite flower. The guy that started this was a pretty good medical device manufacturer, and he created this maze pipe that cools the smoking process from 1300 degrees Fahrenheit upon inflammation down to just 90 degrees when it reaches your mouth. That's right, 1300 down to 90. That's why this maze pipe is amazing. Now, Add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to the B block of Weed Talk News. I'm Karen Black. Over the first half of this year, the state of California has been challenged by Michigan as the #1 cannabis market in the country. The Golden State continues to bring in more revenue, but Michigan is selling more products. California has another problem, and it's with its testing program. Embellished THC percentages and molds and pesticides in some of their flower are just two of the issues. We welcome a new member of the Weed Talk News team this week, Lisa Batista from theflowerco.com. Here's her report.
I'm Lisa Batista from The Flavor Co. with the California Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Our first story involves California Cannabis Testing Lab and the significant battle unfolding as the lab fights to reopen after being shut down by the California Department of Cannabis Control. The lab's attorney, James Anthony, argues that the DCC denied the lab's license renewal based on outdated audit issues from 2 years ago. The lab has already filed a lawsuit claiming a violation of due process. The outcome of this case is significant as it highlights ongoing tensions between cannabis businesses and regulatory bodies, impacting the stability and trust in the legal cannabis market. Next, we turn our attention to Stizzy, one of California's biggest cannabis brands, which is currently buried under a heap of lawsuits. SFGate reports that the brand faces accusations ranging from overstating THC content to illegal cross-state sales and selling pesticide-laden products. Despite these allegations, Stizzy continues to dominate the market with its extensive retail presence and popular vape products. The outcome of these legal battles could impact both Stizzy's future and the broader legal cannabis market in California as major cannabis brands continue to navigate the legal and regulatory frameworks. Finally, in Northern California, the Nevada County Sheriff's Office announced a significant bust of illegal marijuana operations. During July, deputies seized and destroyed over 15,000 illegally grown marijuana plants and about 5,000 pounds of processed cannabis. A 36-year-old man from Grass Valley was charged with illegal cultivation and multiple environmental felonies. The raids uncovered hazardous chemicals and severe environmental violations, emphasizing the dangers and environmental impacts of illegal grows. That's it for this week's California Cannabis Report. I'm Lisa Batista from The Flavor Co. reporting for Weed Talk News.
When it comes to spending on cannabis lobbying for 2Q24, one company is high above the others, and some interesting trends are emerging in the industry. Cresco Labs, a major multi-state operator, is leading the pack of cannabis companies in lobbying expenditures, shelling out a whopping $400,000 in the second quarter alone. This dwarfs the spending of other cannabis giants like Curaleaf at $140,000 and Trulieve at $37,500. Interestingly, despite the buzz around the Farm Bill and its potential impact on the cannabis and hemp industries, only a handful of companies have explicitly mentioned it in their lobbying disclosures. Green Thumb Industries, Good Day Farm, and Scott's Miracle Grow are among the few that have lobbied on the Farm Bill-related issues. Jazz Pharmaceuticals, owner of the FDA-approved cannabis-derived drug Epidiolex, stands out for its comprehensive lobbying efforts. They've not only addressed the Farm Bill, but also focused on the definition of hemp, issues surrounding cannabis banking, and research into cannabis-derived therapies. Jazz's quarterly lobbying spend of $520,000 exceeds Cresco's, but Jazz is a significantly larger company and in a slightly different business. This surge in lobbying activity reflects the cannabis industry's growing influence and its push for favorable legislation as the sector continues to evolve and expand.
The month of August is National Black Business Month, and with that in mind, New Jersey correspondent Jill Goldsberry connected with Tahir Johnson, a legend of sorts in the cannabis industry, who just opened up his dispensary in Trenton, New Jersey. It's called Simply Pure, and it has a connection to another legend in the cannabis industry. Her name is Wanda James.
Probably the biggest of them all, meeting Wanda James, the founder of Simply Pure, the first Black-owned dispensary in the country.
How did you wind up getting connected with her? Because I remember when she opened, that was the biggest thing, and we were all like, "What? This woman opened this dispensary? How is this happening?" So, how did you wind up meeting her?
Yeah, so I met Wanda James. Wanda James was actually one of the original founding board members of NCIA. Again, being one of the first cannabis, not only the first Black operator, but one of the first cannabis operators, period, in the country. Right, like Simply Pure is 15 years old, and even before this, she's been in cannabis since the medical days in Colorado, and transitioned to recreational. So, it's definitely a very well-known brand, but I was doing a webinar for NCIA and I saw her in the chat, like she was attending it live. And so I sent her a Facebook message and we ended up talking on the phone for like 3 hours. This was long before before I was thinking of applying for the dispensary. This is when I was still in advocacy, and we became good friends.
You can see that full interview on demand on the Pro Cannabis Media website and on our YouTube channel.
Marianne Corsaggi always has her finger on the pulse of cannabis in Oregon, and this week is no exception. Here she is with news about a ballot initiative that could spark a legal battle in the Beaver State.
I'm Marianne from Alibi with this week's Oregon Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This November, Oregon voters will decide on whether or not all cannabis businesses, regardless of size, should be required to sign a labor peace agreement. The union has spent more than $2.4 million collecting signatures. Signatures have been validated, and this will head to the ballot as Measure 119. Oregon Business and Industry, which is the state's largest business lobbying group, predicts litigation as this measure is likely in conflict with the National Labor Relations Act. Next, the OLCC's contract with Metric is up for renewal. Following on California's heels, Oregon is hopefully negotiating a good contract. Of specific interest to the industry is batch tagging, system improvements, and the term of the contract. It has been 10 years since the first Metric contract in Oregon, and there are hopes that this year will see a proper RFP process. This past Friday was the second annual Lit Golf Invitational Tournament. Teams from around the industry gathered to play golf, network, and socialize. It was an amazing event, topped off with a visit from U.S. Representative Val Hoyle, who shared her vision for the industry. That's the Oregon Cannabis Report for this week. I'm Marianne with Alibi for Weed Talk News.
Our Michigan correspondent, Amy Carter, is off this week, but here's an interesting story from that state. A marijuana processing company, Sky Labs, is in hot water with state regulators. The Cannabis Regulatory Agency, or CRA, has filed a complaint against Sky Labs, alleging they bought large amounts of unregulated THCA concentrate from out of state and misreported it in mandatory tracking records. This isn't Sky Labs' first run-in with the law. They were fined $100,000 last year and had to surrender their medical marijuana processor license due to safety violations and banned chemicals in their vape products. These new allegations shed light on a shady practice in the cannabis industry where operators mix hemp-derived concentrates from other states into regulated marijuana products, bypassing track and trace requirements. The CRA's complaint lists 8 counts against Sky Labs, highlighting the ongoing challenges in ensuring product integrity and compliance in the cannabis sector. Now let's head south and check in with Kevin Shakir, the Shake Man. who has some developments from Arkansas that will expand the state's medical program.
I'm Kevin Shakir, aka the Shake Man, and this is the Arkansas Cannabis Report for this week, right here on Weed Talk News. Arkansas is abuzz with the news about the Medical Cannabis Expansion Initiative. The Arkansanians for Patient Access APA campaign has received a 30-day extension to gather enough signatures for the November ballot. Here's the lowdown. The APA submitted nearly 110,000 signatures, but the Secretary of State, John Thurston, only validated 77,000. They need 90,704 valid signatures. They're short by roughly 14,000 signatures. The APA spokesperson, Melissa Foltz, is optimistic. Our volunteers are the heroes, she said. They're confident that they'll meet the requirements of the initiative and that it will pass by at least 60% of the vote. The proposal aims to enhance Arkansas's medical cannabis program. Here's how they're going to do that. By allowing healthcare professionals to recommend medical marijuana for any condition, by permitting patients to grow their own cannabis in their homes, by including nurse practitioners, physician assistants, pharmacists, and osteopathic doctors as recommenders. They're extending the medical marijuana card validity from 1 year to 3 years. Also, if federal law passes, it would trigger the end of prohibition here in Arkansas. Also, the initiative will allow dispensaries to sell pre-roll cannabis. Despite setbacks from last year's broader legalization initiative, that was rejected. The extended deadline brings more renewed hope to Arkansanians. For updates on this information, stay tuned right here. I'm Kevin Shakir for Weed Talk News, right here in Arkansas, the natural state. Just remember, keep it natural, keep it green.
There's an interesting story coming out of Connecticut, and it involves another one of those challenging regulations that all in the industry must deal with. It's insurance. Keep in mind, cannabis is still a federally illegal substance, and finding insurers or underwriters can be very difficult. Now, a company in that nutmeg state is fighting with Berkshire Hathaway about millions of dollars of damages to one of its grow rooms. In 2020, a lighting fixture at the grow facility of the TheraPlant licensee blew up and caused a fire. Over 1,000 plants were destroyed and forced that grow facility to shut down. Now the insurer is trying to fight their claim because, after all, they're growing a federally illegal product. The TheraPlant Group claims a $1.3 million loss, and National Fire and Marine Insurance is disputing the claim. That group states that the business losses was due to the damage to the plants, which it says it doesn't cover. Huh? Just another example of how the rest of the world that treats this new industry with disdain. Now it's time to check in on the publicly traded cannabis stocks with our own Doug Miller, who is high on Wall Street.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Weed Talk News. MSO Verano Holdings Corp. entered into an agreement with the cannabis company to acquire the MSO's plant-touching operations in Arizona and Virginia. Verano will pay $105 million in cash, stock, and promissory notes to acquire properties in the two states, growing its footprint to 14 U.S. markets. Verano will pay $15 million in cash for the cannabis company's Arizona operations, which include one cultivation site, one production facility, and it's only 2 marijuana retail stores in the state. In Virginia, Verano is purchasing 1 cultivation site, 1 production facility, and 6 stores. So let's see how this affects Verano's stock price. It's trading around $3.62, and the whole market pulled back last week, and this did too. I'm watching for it to dip down some more, and then I'll see where it bottoms and wants to bounce. So trade smart in these red times. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Weed Talk News, I'm Doug Miller.
That will do it for the B block, or second section, of Weed Talk News. But don't go away. We check in on what's going on in New York State that is finally making some progress in shutting down the thousands of illegal operators in the Empire State. On the way to break, here's another part of the interview PCM founder Jimmy Young did with the political director of NORML, Morgan Fox.
The only thing that I have heard that I think might rise to the level of a derivation from the normal process is the fact that HHS used a new 2-factor process protocol or consideration to determine whether or not cannabis would be appropriate for maintaining its Schedule I status. This is just whether or not there's a high potential for abuse and whether or not there are accepted medical uses for it. Pretty cut and dry. Now, admittedly, this is a criteria that they have not used specifically in the past for cannabis, but the criteria that they were derivating from was only established in 1992, and it was established as in direct response to the DEA's administrative law judges urging the DEA to remove cannabis from the schedule of controlled substances entirely. And DEA administrators fought in the courts for years in order to be able to maintain their ability to ignore their administrative law judges. And one of the things that they were able to do was institute this 5-factor test, which was specifically designed to make sure that cannabis could never be removed from Schedule I, because the number one criteria in that 5-factor test is whether or not the substance is exactly reproducible and uniform, which is an impossibility for a botanical product.
Yeah, it's a great question because cannabis is very exciting. It's almost like, mom and pop drugstores. You could start whatever you wanted. You could be pretty successful. And then there are the business people who see the revenue potential. And those are the ones that I think that are going to become the buyers going forward. And then smaller companies will be the sellers. And then there'll be another group of like, what the heck happened? And there'll probably be some craft survivors as well. But I think, the access to capital in the business, this is becoming a mature business, just like craft beer or the car industry from, the 1910s to today. Yeah, I think Schedule III will have radical changes. I think we're going to see consolidation in the space independent of Schedule III. Schedule III will influence the flavor of the consolidation, but it's going to happen no matter what.
Will that open up more capital?
It'll open up more capital, more access. One way or another, as the industry consolidates, they're going to have to get access to capital. The buyers will, and that's going to change the markets fundamentally.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to the C block, or the final section of this week's Weed Talk News. I'm Karen Black. The city of New York is finally making some progress in shutting down the thousands of illegal operators in New York City, my old stomping grounds, and other communities in the Empire State. Mayor Eric Adams announced that Operation Padlock to Protect has shut down nearly 800 unlicensed businesses in just 3 months, issuing over $65 million in fines and seizing more than $41 million worth of products. Governor Kathy Hochul added that over 1,000 illegal shops have been closed statewide. This aggressive enforcement effort, which began in May, is part of a broader strategy to combat the proliferation of illegal cannabis shops that have been targeting vulnerable populations, including children. The crackdown has also boosted legal cannabis sales, with 214 new licenses issued since May and 152 legal dispensaries now operating across the state. Officials are encouraging residents to report illegal shops by calling 311 or by emailing the sheriff's office. Now it's time for the Nevada Cannabis Report, and here's Tina Tasaka.
I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies, and this is the Nevada Report for Weed Talk News. Sauce Essentials, one of the fastest growing U.S. premium cannabis brands, committed to providing top quality products at affordable prices, announced today the company's expansion into the Nevada and Colorado recreational cannabis markets, bringing its category leading products to hundreds of new dispensaries in the Western Territories. Since entering the recreational market, Sauce Essentials has been a leader in 1G live resin all-in-one AIO vaporizers. Sauce's product portfolio includes sauce bars, sauce smokes infused pre-rolls, sauce bursts high potency gummies, and Dream Pen CBN vapes, with new products set to launch in coming months. God, I love that. Quote, as we expand into Colorado and Nevada, we're thrilled to bring Sauce's commitment to quality and innovation in new markets, consistently placing us in the top 5 of our respective categories, unquote, said Claire Harden, Field Marketing Expert Manager at Sauce Essentials. Sauce will launch in 45 dispensaries across Nevada by the end of August and is currently the 5th ranked AIO vape brand in the state, according to the most recent data from Headset. This expansion is a major milestone in the company's growth strategy, and Sauce products will be available in over 50% of the Nevada market by August 2024. In Colorado, Sauce will launch in 80 dispensaries by the end of August, with an expectation to cover 30% of the Colorado market by the end of summer. MedMen, once dubbed as the Apple Store of cannabis, continues the bankruptcy filings. So where does the MedMen Properties in Nevada stand in all of this? The slow but steady closing of shop for MedMen Enterprises is proceeding methodically under the watch of California-based receiver Richard Ormond, who filed an update report in July stating that sales are underway for most former MedMen dispensaries. While some are being abandoned, 4 others in Southern California are apparently still serving customers. In Nevada, 2 more former MedMen dispensaries are also under contract for transition to a third-party buyer. Ormond reported, again awaiting regulatory approval for the deal. The sale is set for a hearing on August 15th. That's it for the 702. I'm Tina Tasaka with 420 Technologies and Weed Talk News.
The month of August is National Black Business Month, and with that in mind, New Jersey correspondent Jill Goldsberry connected with Tahir Johnson, a legend of sorts in the cannabis industry, who just opened up his dispensary in Trenton.
Probably the biggest of them all, meeting Wanda James, the founder of Simply Pure, the first Black-owned dispensary in the country. Who's
that's
what,
yeah.
so,
How did you wind up getting connected with her? Because I remember when she opened, that was the biggest thing. And we were all like, "What? This woman opened this? How is this? How is this happening?" So, how did you wind up meeting her?
Yeah, so I met Wanda James. Wanda James was actually one of the original founding board members of NCIA. Again, being one of the first not only the first Black operator, but one of the first cannabis operators, period, in the country, right? Like Simply Pure is 15 years old. And even before this, she's had she's been in cannabis since the medical days in Colorado, and, transitioned to recreational. So, it's definitely a very well-known brand. But I was doing a webinar for NCIA, and I saw her in the chat, like she was attending it live. And so I sent her a Facebook message, and we talked on the phone, ended up talking on the phone for like 3 hours. This was long before before I was thinking of applying for the dispensary, this is when I was still in advocacy, and we became good friends.
You can see that full interview on demand on the Pro Cannabis Media website and on our YouTube channel.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. Verano Holdings is on the move. The Chicago-based MSO agreed to acquire all of the Cannabis Co.'s Arizona assets for $15 million cash. The deal includes a cultivation facility, a production site, and 2 dispensaries, one in Tempe and one in Prescott. When the deal is finalized, Verano will have 8 dispensaries in Arizona and a 90,000 square foot cultivation footprint across 3 facilities. Verano is also poised to enter the Virginia market, as my colleague Joe Parsons reports. In case you had any doubt, the Imperious Cannabis Business Expo will not be happening in Phoenix August 9th and 10th. The show was rescheduled from February amid a lot of controversy and not a lot of communication. If you're still holding tickets, you may want to request a refund if you can get a hold of anyone, that is. Although many Arizonans would rather stay indoors in August, there's plenty of action for those who wish to venture out. Sunday Goods won Best Dispensary of Phoenix for the 4th year in a row and is thanking its customers with a big summer sale. Nirvana opened a dispensary in Tucson July 27th. Mint Cannabis is hosting Superstar Saturday Cannabis Extravaganzas and Sunday Fun Day Cannabis Celebrations in August, and True Bliss, The Giving Tree, and The Flower Shop are holding big BOGO sales this month. Elevate Cannabis has arrived in Arizona. Products can be found at the Elevate Dispensary in Springerville, as well as at 2 dispensaries in Phoenix. And Story Cannabis announced 3 new house brands, Fadeco, More, and Just Flower, now available at its stores around the state. Finally, here's a sneak peek of my Weed Talk News one-on-one with Allison Benedict, founder of Pause Consumption.
My relationship with cannabis really started when I was in college. I had a really terrible accident where I broke my back in 3 places.
Nice.
And it was my freshman year, and I was taking a very heavy course load, and I was a very dedicated academic. So I really didn't want to lighten my load. I wanted to be able to continue with my schooling. But the prescription medications that they gave me in my recovery didn't really allow me to continue to focus.
The full interview will be available Thursday on Pro Cannabis Media's YouTube channel. That's all for the Arizona Cannabis Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Weed Talk News. The full interview will be available Thursday on Pro Cannabis Media's YouTube channel. That's all for the Arizona Cannabis Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Weed Talk News.
I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young, and I'll tell you what, never a dull moment in the Bay State of Massachusetts when cannabis is concerned. The Cannabis Control Commission continues to operate with the state legislature looking over its shoulder. In this week's Talking Joints memo, journalist Chris Ferrone reports that the state legislature is not going to put the CCC into receivership, but they will be subject to a review in an upcoming legislative session. Free agent journalist Grant Smith Ellis continues to find information that he shares with us with his following, and he's obviously getting into the heads of the variety of commissioners on the board. They've tried to ban him from press conferences and meetings, but let's give him some credit for continuing to follow up and report on the commission's operations. The industry, after all, does keep better records and track of their own seed-to-sale operations than the commission does on the distribution of the tax money collected in the industry. Reporter Ellis says some of those fees are missing, and the commission says, after an internal review, there are some unpaid taxes that have not been collected, but none are missing. Stay tuned. The old talk show legend Eddie Endelman used to say, sports, politics, and revenge. That's how he described Bay State politics and operations. In this case, it's cannabis, politics, and personality conflicts. Now, despite the drama and lack of movement on any plans for social consumption, the Commission is doing the best they can. At least that's what they continue to say. Keep in mind, social consumption was part of the original letter of the law written for the adult use market that was voted in on the ballot in 2016. Since then, efforts to figure out just how to do that have been delayed, ignored, or just been deemed too complicated for this group of regulators to handle. So, I decided to do a little research on the local social consumption front that's already going on in this state at private dinners, speakeasies, and closed plus 21 events. They exist now, and the Commission claims that the best they can do is send out memos to event organizers on the rules and regulations, so there's no sales of this product at those private events. Now keep in mind, this industry was pretty vibrant even when it was totally illegal to even possess cannabis. Now you have the internal battle between the hot hemp products from Delta 8 and the legal and licensed products. Now, Morgan Fox is the director of politics, or political director, if you will, for NORML, and he talked to me this week a little bit about that break in between and within.
There's a pretty robust regulatory structure under the CAOA, much more so than other descheduling legislation that we've looked at. I think that there are still a lot of open questions about the best way to regulate cannabis and cannabinoid products. But I think that what's really important is a different point that you started on. Which is the assertion that Ron DeSantis is embracing the unregulated synthetic cannabinoid industry. I do not think that that is actually the case. I think that he is using those folks in order to help defeat the marijuana initiative, and that as soon as that is defeated, he's going to push for a bill that is even more restrictive than the one that he vetoed, and he's going to turn around and screw those people that he's currently using to help him beat legalization. We saw.
So earlier in the show, we reported on how Ohio's regulators are restricting the activities around the opening of their adult use market. No outdoor music, no food trucks, no advertising. And I guess you want to compare that to the grand opening of a new one in Boston, Mass. It's called Firebrand. That's right. It's right across the street from South Station.
This is a new place to be here across from South Station. Firebrand Cannabis. Thank you so much for coming on.
Firebrand, a Boston dispensary, has their grand opening right across from the South Station train and bus station in downtown Boston. Your location is amazing. Oh my God. Is that not what brings most people in the door?
Yes, of course. We got 90,000 people rolling out of South Station daily, So we just got to tap into that market. We're sitting on a rocket ship. We just got to figure out how to fly this badass.
And of course, the most important thing is you offer educated bud tenders who understand this very complicated flower.
That is the most important thing. We have some really experienced bud tenders that understand terpenes and how they interact with the cannabinoids and the whole synergy of the cannabis plant.
It's the weekend of the Homegrown Cup in Charlton, Massachusetts. That was part of the Homie Collective Campout, 3-day festival of music, arts, crafts, homegrown, and of course, cannabis culture.
This is our third public year, so 2019 to 2022. I mean, now we're at 4 stages with with at least 2 side stages this year, and well over 200 acts. So we're talking mostly genres centered in jamtronica, jam band, and then like bass EDM acts, dubstep, whatever you want to, all kinds of umbrella terms like that. But there's pretty much a space for everything, and this year is actually especially unique because we have this whole techno hard style stage coming out of the NYC. That's a really unique thing to our community here. So we're kind of doing a lot of like bridging gaps and connecting, you know what I mean?
I heard you say that you now are collecting disposable vapes for recycling. Why is that so important? And don't you think the cannabis industry should be taking the lead on that?
Absolutely. There's a lot of waste in the cannabis industry when it comes to disposable products. So when we launched our Traveler, we started a recycling program. We actually expanded that to include our 510 carts and our batteries now. So all Fernway products are recyclable. You bring the unit back to the store, put it in the box. We take care of the rest with a partner that we have over in Northampton.
Well, that'll do it for this week's Weed Talk News. I promise Alaina Pinto will be back next week from her Michigan vacation, but she did share some images from her trip. Did a little shopping trip at Michigan dispensaries when she was over there. I'm PCM founder Jimmy Young, reminding you all that it is a whole new world of weed out there, so please use it responsibly. And how did you come up with the idea, and how difficult was it? You look like Jamie Lee Curtis.
You really do, yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
An emergency moment. I just got stung on my lip.
What by what?
I got stung. Do you have ice? Can I have a
Yeah,
piece
I'll
of
find
ice?
you
Just
some.
one piece of ice.
That's good.
Sorry, I thought you were in the middle of interviewing.
Yeah, no, but this is exciting. I'm a news guy. I feel like we got the lead story. All right. That's pathetic. Okay, I did not stage this. Okay, I just want to say.
Neither did I. I was talking to somebody. I was like, he's doing an interview. Wasp just bit me.
That, Charlie, we have. Yeah, I saw it actually when you showed it the first time. Thank you. No worries.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.